Hello, it's Alex. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I've got two dresses to show you. They are both fairly recent sewing patterns that have been, recently released. I know that more recently I was concentrating on quick and easy things to sew during the warmer weather, but if any of you are in the UK and any of you are in the Northwest, you'll know that the good weather appears to have disappeared. It apparently is the rainiest July on record in Manchester. I don't think we've had a day when it hasn't rained. So I've had a little bit more indoors time, and I think I mentioned on my last video that I wanted to make the Peony Dress, the new pattern from Godmother, to wear to my youngest daughter's graduation, which was yesterday. Just came back late last night. And this is it. I am obviously wearing it now. Really enjoyed making it. I really enjoyed wearing it all day yesterday. I am already thinking about how to make some winter versions. So this review is going to be a rave review. So the pattern itself is, as I mentioned on my last video, I would say very much inspired by Dresses from the Vampire's Wife. It has a slightly raised waistline. I think on the pattern it says it should sit about 1 centimetre above your natural waist, maybe 2 centimetres above mine. It skims the body. It's not super fitted and super tight, but neither is it oversized. And it has this round neck. It's not super, you know what I mean. And then the sleeves, the line here where we go to the flutters or to the gathered sleeve should, in theory, I won't see it until I look back, line up with the waistline seam. Yeah, and then these lovely little gathered sleeves here. And then you've got, obviously I'll be inserting images, the whole gathering at the bottom at the hem. There is an option to do a shorter version without that gather, and obviously as somebody that sews you could mess around with those proportions. You could make it shorter or longer. I like the longer version, and I'm 5'7", so I'm probably around the size that it's drafted for, or possibly even a tiny bit taller, but I'm really happy with where it sits. Yeah, honestly, this is a new find. I love it. So you may know that I have a tendency to be a little bit picky about sewing pattern instructions. So obviously this is the first ever pattern that Godmother have issued. Godmother are a online fabric company. And I have to say that these instructions were superb. Even I couldn't find fault. I really liked them. Even to the extent where the one bit that is not particularly enjoyable to do is all the gathering. I don't know about anyone else. I just don't particularly enjoy gathering. This gathering around the sleeve, not so bad. But the gathering at the hem, there are 3 pattern pieces in those gathers. They're pretty full and there's a lot of it. You just got to suck it up. But they do give you notches on the hem of the skirt, so it really does help as much as anyone can help, unless they came into your sewing machine and actually did your gathering for you. It helps as much as it can. And for me, I like how this pattern turned out enough to cope with the gathering. The other thing it has, the other design feature, is the shoulders. So it's gathered at the shoulders, and then you've got an option to insert do they call it a puff? It's basically a sleeve head, like you might get with a tailored jacket or a coat. But it's like an extra long sleeve head that's gathered, and you're told in the instructions that you can interface that, or you could possibly even do 2 of the sleeve puffs if you wanted to, or you could eliminate it altogether. And that's down to personal preference. So obviously the puffier you make it on the inside and the more that you include a fixed or a sturdier sleeve puff, the more that you're going to get a sort of three-dimensional shape here. So I think I mentioned a little while ago that I was going to a sewing social, and it was one run by Nadia, whose channel I think is called Stitch and Style by Nadia. I went to that a couple of weeks ago, and I'd got to the point where I had pretty much made the body of the dress. I'd got the zip in the back. It's got an invisible zip at the back. But I hadn't yet inserted the sleeves, and so it was really useful. I wasn't sure which way I was going to go with the degree of puff. So what I was able to do is I inserted both sleeves in, but only inserted one with a sleeve puff. And I interfaced mine, but I did use a medium to heavy woven interfacing on my sleeve puff. So it's certainly a heavier interfacing than I would have used if, say, for example, I had a facing to do. So I put it in one side and not in the other, and asked everybody which they thought, and pretty much unanimously everybody said with puff. So easily influenced, I've gone with puff. And I wasn't sure how workable that would be. I wasn't sure if it would feel uncomfortable. I thought if you've got to put, you're going to put a jacket on, or you get cold in the day and you want to put a cardigan on, is it going to be annoying? But actually, having worn it all day yesterday, I am sold. I suspect they may have collapsed a little bit having been worn, and yeah, as I say, long car journey and all the rest of it. So, but I really like it, and I would possibly even consider making the sleeve puff element out of a stiffer, so you don't want it too stiff because you don't want it to feel scratchy and uncomfortable, but maybe something a little bit stiffer for those sleeve puffs. I wouldn't eliminate them or discount them, because actually I like the slightly structural. I keep doing that just because I'm worried it's flattened a bit with wear, but yeah, I like the structural shape. Anyway, an absolute winner for me. I love it. I am wondering about a winter version in something like a lightweight needle cord. Doesn't want to be a thick corduroy because I've got all the gathers, and you want a little bit of drape for this. But I've made winter dresses with a needle cord that's not too thick before, and it's been really successful. So I'm thinking of doing that. Or just generally in the next couple of months, as we head towards September, some of the winter fabrics are going to come out, aren't they? And I'd like to make one that feels more kind of, well, daytime-ish, more kind of, for when I'm just mooching around at home. I didn't tell you what the fabric is. It is a viscose, but it's a really, really nice quality viscose. It's not a viscose challis, which is a pain. It's designer Deadstock. It came from Bornella Fabrics, and I do believe that it is ex Hermes. Get me? I love the pattern on it. They're very me kind of colours. Yeah, I really love it. It was slippery as... yeah, it was very slippery. I won't say what I was going to say. It was very slippery to sew with, and it did mean that a couple of the pattern pieces that you would normally cut on the fold, I didn't cut on the fold. I basically traced them out and flipped the pattern piece over at the centre, just because I have got a print on here and the fabric was sliding all over the show, and if I hadn't have done that, I would be in danger of having a print that was going on the wonk. So it was a little bit more time consuming, but worth it. Yeah, so if you're thinking of making one, I would highly recommend it. Fantastic size range as well. I think it goes up to I'm not sure what the lowest one is, goes to a size 30, which is a 50-inch hip, or just over a 50-inch hip. I did a size 10, well, I didn't. I did a size 10, but I graded up to a size 12 at the waist. I'm glad I did that. I was a little bit in two minds because my waist was about 3 centimetres larger than the pattern measurements, and it looked like there was enough ease in the finished garment measurements, but I wanted to be comfortable, and I think for me it's been just right. It has just been exactly that, skimming but not in the least bit constricting. And I was doing lots of sitting and standing around, and you know what these formal occasions like graduations are like, you know, you want to be comfy. So big hit. And then the other dress that I've made, hold on, is I guess a similar kind of colour actually, is the new dress from Elbe Textiles. Actually it comes as a dress and a jumpsuit, and it's the Homme or the Homme, yeah, another one I can't pronounce. Lauren always names her patterns after musicians. Anyway, it is a wrap dress. I cannot remember what the size range is, but I can absolutely guarantee you it will be a really inclusive size range because Elbe Textiles, Lauren is always brilliant at that. Whatever the size range is, it'll be great. I really like the look of this dress. So it has no fastenings. It wraps at the front. It has this elasticated waist, and actually I'll tell you what, why don't I just put it on, hold on. Okay, so without flashing you, I haven't tied it up yet. So yes, it has a wrap at the front, and it is an elasticated skirt all the way round, but where the wraps over at the front, you have got this gap, which if you're not somebody that wants to have a sort of cut out gap, do not fear, because it very much depends on how you tie this wrap. And I'll be honest, I'm still getting used to which way looks best. When I first made it, I tried to make the wraps sort of flatter at the front, and I don't think that is as, obviously it ties at the back. I'm not sure that is as successful. It's definitely one you're going to have a little fiddle around with, depending on whether you want that bit or not. But I think it worked better when I just sort of scrunched and was a little bit more kind of casual about it. The other brilliant thing about the size range is that she gives you, there are cup sizes. I made a B cup, but there are C and D, possibly double D, can't remember. But yeah, there are cup sizes. So that's all taken care of. I really, again, like this dress. It's super comfy. Another one that's great if you are fluctuating size-wise, either over a period of time or over a month. All of those things I have been. It's absolutely brilliant for that. It sits, I would say, a tiny bit above your natural waistline. I found it super easy to sew. Again, I always like Lauren's instructions. There are a couple of things to mention. One is that there is the option, if you are making this out of a fabric that is it has a wrong side and a right side. So if I'd made it out of this one, she does show you how to do the ties on the wrap so that you can make sure you've only got the right side. Basically you do 2 pieces and sandwich it in between. So you can do that. I didn't do it with this one because this fabric doesn't have an obvious wrong side, but I am about halfway through making one for my daughter out of, oh, here it is, out of this fabric, which has got, that's the right side. There's another viscose. This one is really horrible to sew with. Yeah, and that one does have an obvious wrong side. So it's useful to have that. The other thing is that your skirt comes in 4 pieces, 4 identical pieces. The only difference is that you use darts. You have darts on the 2 back skirts, and they join at the centre front on both the back and on the front. Now, when I started to cut this one out for my daughter, I decided to ignore the centre front seam and to just cut 2 pieces, a front and a back, and I just placed it on the fold and accepted that it would be a smidge more gathered, because obviously you have that 1 centimetre seam allowance at the front. So obviously that's not how it was designed, but no reason why you can't do that. Of course you're going to be limited by the width of your fabric, so it may be easier to cut 4 separate pieces, but whichever way, you're going to get the same effect. But yeah, I really like this. My only thing, and it's very easy to overcome, my only thing is that, what do we not have? No pockets. However, it is a jumpsuit pattern and a dress pattern, which personally I think is really good to have that offered within the same pattern, because you're not paying twice. And I really like the look of the jumpsuit. To make one of those is most definitely on the agenda. It's got a really nice wide leg trousers, exactly the same bodice. But with the jumpsuit, there are pocket pieces and there are instructions on how to insert the pockets. It could be that I misunderstood and didn't realise that it was intended to have pockets on the skirt as well. There's every possibility that I didn't really notice it properly. But again, for the one I'm going to make for my daughter, I have cut out those pocket pieces that are intended for the jumpsuit, and I'm going to add them to the skirt for her. I've also shortened the skirt because that's what she wants. Lots of bias binding, which isn't my favourite thing in the world. How's that sitting? Probably needs a better press. And the jury's still out a little bit on the fabric. It's anyone in the UK might well know Fabworks, who are over the hills in Yorkshire, and they have a really good website, really good online presence. It's one of their house linens, and it's not actually 100% linen, it's a linen blend. It's only 40% linen, 60% cotton. And I kind of was expecting it, because it was titled house linen, to have more of a linen-like feel, which was probably a bit ambitious of me, given it was only 40% linen. It is a nice fabric, don't get me wrong. It crinkles and creases like linen, but yeah, it feels, it's a nice fabric. It's just not as linen-y as I was hoping. I chose it mostly for the colour. I have got this really fantastic linen shirt that I bought from, I bought it from Zara, but I bought it purely for the colour, and I am desperately trying to find some linen fabric in the same colour. Actually, do you know, I'll get it out of my wardrobe and show you. Green, of course. But I absolutely, even though I don't really buy things too often, and I do try to avoid fast fashion, but I just couldn't resist the colour of this shirt. And I've been wearing it non-stop over the summer because I like the colour so much. And I thought that I'd got the same thing, but clearly it's not quite. If anyone sees any linen online this colour, please let me know. Yeah, I really rate Elbe Textiles. I think she has some really interesting sewing patterns over there. So I did want to also say thank you very much for all the comments from my last video. And also there were quite a few people in Australia who had clicked through on that Readly offer, you know, to get 3 months free subscription to Readly with no obligation, you know, you can cancel at any time. And friends in Australia were only being offered a month. They have now given me a specific Australia link that will give you 2 free months. So I will put that in the description box below, or maybe there'll be a link to the last video. I think that's probably the way I'll do it. Anyway, one way or another, if you look in the description box, if you are in Australia, you can get that offer. So you didn't get left out. I don't know what my plans are for the next little while. I'm still yet to make my woven Naya top, That's definitely on the agenda. Other than that, I'm really not sure. So watch this space. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye bye.